ladies and gentlemen. He was so popular the first two times I had to have him back. On everybody, comedian extraordinaire and Jersey to the core. So today's episode of Wellness Week is growing up in the 1980s. And Rico, thanks for coming back on. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me again. You're making me feel so special. I wish I need more friends like you out here.
I could be your publicist, dude.
Yeah, man.
So to people who don't know, Rico and I grew up together in the same small town in Jersey. How you doing, Powell Park, New Jersey?
Woo-woo.
Yeah, and I wanted to have you on because when I think of the 1980s, I think of my childhood. Well, you're somebody in my childhood. We grew up together, went to school together. So when someone, Rico, says to you, or the phrase or the 1980s, what comes to mind right away when you think of the 1980s?
Actually, it's funny when I think of the 1980s, I think of like Ronald Reagan because it was like, I don't know why. It's not like, it was just one of those things that I remember like watching, like I guess my parents or somebody was watching it. And then like, it seemed like he made like this backdoor deal and he's like, his competitor was Bush. And he's like, you know what, how about this? You be my vice president. We know I'm going to beat you. Like it was such like it seemed like he was such a baller that I just assumed, every president was going to be like that. And then like the Challenger from when we were in school, the Challenger explosion, the space shuttle, like that was like, like that day in school. I remember that day like it was yesterday.
Oh man, and it's funny you mentioned Reagan. I never really think of Reagan, but yes, Reagan is so quintessential to the 80s experience. You're right about that. He's so pop culture. And I think, I don't know how you feel, but I think the 1980s was the last era before things went digital and internet and cell phone and apps. This was the last analog generation, our generation. After this, everything got hyper warp speed. This is the last generation where things were slower. Things were just, you still had a rotary phone. You had to knock on a door. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was only one cable network. There wasn't 3,000 television stations. There was maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Rico,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say, real quick. I know you're a movie buff and entertainment in the entertainment industry, and I thought to myself, you and I are old enough to remember like when a movie came out. And if you didn't see that movie, it was gone forever. There was no VHS yet. Technically there was, but it wasn't in homes yet. VHS wasn't a huge thing when we were really young. If you didn't see a movie, you would think about that. You would never see it again. So now we watch movies on our phones, and you can download
the timeline of when a movie left the theater to by the time it made it, because it was only HBO was like the only game in town that it would eventually go to,
and that's only the movies that HBO wanted to show. So
yes, but that took like a year. It was still a year or so after it was,
Yeah, like, and VHS wasn't a thing yet until like mid 80s. It's just. Yeah, a movie came out and that was it. No, you were going to say something before I cut you off on that?
No, but you were saying, and it took so long to make movies. Like back then, it wasn't like a 2-month shoot. They shot the movie for 8 months, and like you said, if you didn't see it in the theater,
you're not going to see it all. Yeah, and we grew up in a time, you and I, in the 1980s, where like if you wanted to go see what people were doing, you had to leave your house, go onto Broad Avenue. Or down the block and actually see your friends. Now people see their friends online, quote unquote online. They see them in what do you call it? I know a lot of people play video games and they can play video games through the internet and hang out with their friends on the video games there or whatever. It's just like, it's a different thing. We had to physically knock on doors. Hey, can John come out? Now
I remember when Three-Way came out on the phone.
Yeah.
Put another person on or like call waiting. We were like, mind blown. We were
I had a rotary phone. We had and I remember having to walk up to the television to turn the knob. We didn't even have a remote. So it was just like click, click, click. And dude. So we look back and it's like a very simpler time and you were just in the moment. I think more people weren't doing this every friggin' 10 seconds, I even remember, like, I don't know about you, but it's like, it's almost impossible to just strike up a conversation with a stranger nowadays because everyone's got their headphones on and looking at their phone. It's impossible. Like back then in the 80s, even before then, right? It was just easier to talk to people because people were looking up literally, they were in the moment. So the 80s was that last bastion of that type of simplicity and freedom in many ways, I would say. But so what was your favorite television show? Speaking about turning television knobs.
The Great American Hero.
Oh shit.
That was great. The $1 Million Man. That
Oh
was
yes.
awesome.
Yes.
The Hulk was awesome.
Oh, I love the Hulk.
Those were great. Like, those. And it's so funny because you can't remember. There was actually, I think it was like my mother used to watch like Falcon Crest or something. I remember I was into it. Like I was watching it. It's like nighttime.
Drama, soap operas.
Yeah, soap opera, nighttime soap opera. Just a bigger
Dallas,
budget.
Dynasty.
Yeah, it was Dallas followed by Dynasty or vice versa.
Right. Like my parents, grandparents. By the way, Johnny Carson was big in my house. My grandparents loved Johnny Carson.
Yeah,
I love the Hulk actually. The Hulk, and I used to watch 2020.
Yeah, 2020. It's still going, right?
Yeah, Walters, man, she's gonna get to the bottom of stuff. But yeah, so that was my favorite show too. Yeah, I loved Fantasy Island. It was great.
Fantasy Island was gangster. Yeah,
Different Strokes. What was like one of your favorite movies? Like when you think of the 80s, what came to mind?
Because the Rockies were in the 80s, right? Like
that's my first thing I said. Yep, the Rockies.
Yeah, the Rockies. You want to hear something about like missing something? I remember in Rocky 3, he loses to Clubber Lane, right? And we were watching it. Like the movie came out, it was like a year or so later. It finally came on HBO. We were all watching it. And so there was no, hey, like with my kid, we're like, hey, Giovanni, you got a 5-minute warning, 3-minute warning. You can watch it tomorrow. Yeah. I remember my father just came out and he was like, shut the TV. And he was like, go to bed. Right. So like I saw Clubber Lane beat Rocky. So for like 3 months, I'm like, oh, Rocky lost.
Yeah.
And then finally I saw the ending and I was like, oh, he won. He came back. And there was a second fight because we all went to sleep like, oh man, like
When I think of the 1980s, I think of Sylvester Stallone and I think of the Rocky trilogies or the Rocky movies. I also think of the Goonies and Weird Science, all those kind of campy flicks. Rambo's. You're right. We
wrote a letter to Sylvester Stallone when they were on the set. Like it was like there was a list that a teacher had that it had like who you wanted to write to. They asked for an autograph, and he actually sent one back.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was signed, and it was cool because it was from Rambo, but he was holding a bow and arrow, but in the movie he never used this bow. Like it was like.
Right.
Now I know what it is being in the entertainment industry. It was a side shot or whatever that they were going to use probably. And
right. Oh, that's so cool.
Pretty cool.
Stallone. Okay. Yeah. Remember Famous People program in Powell Park High School?
Yeah.
I mean, that was so cool. Alec Baldwin came. We had a bunch of athletes. That was, yeah. So, okay. So, movies were big. I mean, that was, again, one of the ways to, there wasn't a lot of media back then. It was, you had your television, your radio, and your movies for the most part. Okay, so what about going on to music? So who were some of your favorite bands or singers or songs?
It's so funny. I have a shirt. You remember like Striper?
Oh, I saw him in concert. Love them.
Yeah. Striper was great. I can't remember, AC/DC, like I remember Metallica, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I had a big array of, and to this day, like I'm not even afraid of like my internet search. I'm afraid if somebody finds my Spotify playlist, they're gonna be like, how do you go from Zeppelin to Taylor Swift? What's going on? Like, Lionel Richie, like
listen,
the Commodores.
Yeah. No, I was a big Van Halen fan. My first piece of music I ever bought was Van Halen 1984, a record. From Valley Fair in Little Ferry.
Yes, yeah, over the bridge.
I bought a record, dude. So Van Halen, of course, right? Cyndi Lauper and Michael Jackson. How do you not like all those artists? Okay, so now I also, when I think of the 1980s, I think of McDonald's. I don't know. What about you? Like, what were some of your favorite fast food places?
So what's funny is that I have this weird connection to Burger King because I remember remember on Fort Lee Road there was I think it was Fort Lee Road across from those big apartment buildings in Cliffside.
It's still there, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. So like every time I drive by there, I'm like, I'm like BK, like the onion rings. I don't know why.
I used to work there. I worked at that one, and I worked at the Burger King in Richfield on 1 and 9 Grand, like going towards North Bergen.
Yep. Yeah, did they turn that one into like a White Castles after that?
Yeah, well, now they knocked them all down. But yeah. So except for the one in Fort Lee that you're talking about. By the way, remember the Dairy Queen in Fort Lee? Did you work there?
Yeah, I worked at Dairy Queen in Fort Lee. Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
It was
Oh man,
great.
I used to love that place. That was
I remember getting They used to sell the gallon of ice cream you could buy, and we used to make like a gallon Blizzard. And I would take home like a gallon Blizzard, like an Oreo Blizzard in a gallon tub, which they didn't sell that, but because we worked there, we did it. You know what I'm saying?
Now, but speaking about social media, like if you went to the Dairy Queen in Fort Lee, New Jersey in the 80s, that was like the place to go on a Saturday night. Everybody was there. It's like, you saw whatever, just that was the spot to be at. Unfortunately, that's all gone now. But okay, so Burger King. My thing was McDonald's, and I like Burger King too. So wait, who's got better burgers of the two? Do you think Burger King or McDonald's?
I had a Whopper recently, and I was like, I ate half of it, and I was like, not bad. You know what I'm saying? But like yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say, I almost feel like a cheeseburger at McDonald's doesn't even count as a burger. Like it's its own thing. Even though it's a burger.
Yeah. There's better burgers out there, but of the two, I don't know. I think Burger King's burgers are better, but McDonald's fries are better. But
McDonald's fries, and then like the Burger King has the onion rings, but then McDonald's has a
birthday party at the Cliffside Park. McDonald's in the 80s. I used to go there when I was a child. There would be birthday parties there. And I thought like, whoa, like that. This was amazing. And did you ever go to a birthday party there?
I've been to a birthday party there. We never had one because our families, the Italians.
Well, I didn't have a birthday party myself, but I used to go there.
I've been to one or two there. I remember me and Jamie Z went there, and they had 99-cent Big Macs, and we went in and we ordered we had like $40. We ordered like 30 of them.
Holy shit. My God, get the Pepto-Bismol out. Yeah. So, okay. So now what about, school? Because I think when we think of our youth, right, we think of school, elementary school. So like, who were some of your favorite teachers growing up, in elementary school? Because high school was
I had, Miss Tana. There was a lady, Miss 80.
Miss 80.
Yeah, Miss Tana, Miss 80. I had Miss Rubino was my first grade teacher. I had her twice.
Oh, wow. I got left back. So nice. I had it twice. All right.
Yeah, I liked it so much. I had it twice.
Okay, yeah, no, I like Miss Martin. I remember Miss fifth grade. The toughest teacher for me was like Miss Voto or Miss Sabin. They were really tough on me, but I think when we think of our youth, we think of our schooling is intertwined with that, and we were in high school for some of the 80s too, at the tail end of the 80s, and I tell people like going to high school. When we started in 8th grade, so our high school didn't start in 9th grade. So we started high school in 1987. But I mean, right. And the stuff that happened at Powell Park High School, you can't even, I don't think the statute of limitations is up yet. But I'm like, if we were playing by the rules today, that whole high school would be locked up in some prison.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just but it was a lot of fun, man. It was unfortunately, I have teenagers that come up to me today and they're like, oh man, I wish I grew up in the 80s. Everything's so regimented now and there's no breathing room. Everything's, whatever, your cameras and cell phones, and no one can just kind of breathe, but yeah, it was fun. Definitely going to high school in the 80s. Okay, so now let me ask you, what did you play video games in the 1980s?
Well, we had Atari. I remember we had ColecoVision, and then I forgot, I wasn't. It's funny you say that. I got a few friends who are big gamers. I was never really a big gamer because on 10th Street we had 13 kids that lived on 10th Street, so it was always I had the Cerotis, the Delosas, the Catawba. We just had the Z. We just had so many kids. It was we played hockey, baseball, whipperball. It was always
it's funny. Back in the day, right? Video games were not a big thing. It's something people had, but you really were more out playing outside. Right. I had Pac-Man or, had Atari, Space Invaders, but it was but today, dude, it's an epidemic. I mean, you have grown men, teenagers that don't want to leave the house because they play video games for 8, 9, 10 hours. It's like, bro, what happened to getting out? And thank God we had that, video games.
I tried. I literally went and bought a PS5 like 3 or 4 years ago because I was like, you know what? I can use it. I don't drink or smoke or anything. Like maybe I'll get a new addiction. Let me try something new. I was playing. I was like,
yeah, I don't get it. But I guess that's the time in the era we grew up where we didn't get it. And I remember though thinking wow, the graphics on Pac-Man are amazing. Little did I know, 2024 things would be basically virtual reality headsets, but it's all relative. But I remember thinking like Pong or Pac-Man was just mind blowing. It's just like, whoa,
Yeah.
like
I could turn my TV into a video game and I have to put quarters in. Oh
or
my
even
God.
or even just seeing the video games. Because again, you and I are old enough, like, I remember 1980, 1981, there were no video games. And when they first came out, like in the delis and in the video arcades, it was just like, what is this thing? And I wasn't a big video game person, but just, like the awe of like that technology is like, whoa, like that's crazy.
Yeah, I remember in first grade, I think it was, I was sitting next to Tony Oso because he was here recently out in LA to visit my sister. And I remember sitting next to him and writing on a piece of paper 1982 and going like, let me remember this. I don't know why. I was like,
oh, that's so cool.
19, like I took a snapshot and in my brain, I remember writing 1982 and being like, I'll look back on this one day and say, wow. And
yeah. I mean, it's just that, and I remember, right, you can get a slice of pizza and a Coke for, I remember 50 cents, a quarter for a slice and a quarter for a Coke. That's how old I am. I remember that. It's like, wow.
Oh, Freddie Sidotti's mother would give us $1 to go get her a pack of cigarettes. There was 75 cents. Now you got to remember, we were like 12 years old and we were able to have the quarter. So the lady knew us at the store. So she knew we weren't buying them for ourselves. But think about that. If I handed my kid money to go get me a pack of cigarettes at the store.
Well, Rico, we could buy cigarettes back then. I used to buy cigarettes all the time for my uncle. I would buy cartons of them. Nobody would ever question me, nothing there. I just be like, all right, thank you, bye. But it was a different time. And I also remember, probably like you, like I would go out of my house. I mean, I was 10 years old, 11. I wouldn't come back home for 8 hours.
Oh, yeah.
I would just be gone and like, all right, whatever. And just come home before the sun goes down. And I would go out a lot of times, like, bicycling Palisades Park and other towns, like by myself, going through down the county where the fields were. Like I would cut through that. Like I don't know if they were wheat fields or cornfields, whatever the hell they were. But I remember saying to myself, I could have got killed and nobody would have known.
Yeah,
like someone could have kidnapped me. I mean, you just we all live.
We always. I mean, you were like most of the time we ran in packs. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like probably. But yeah, I mean, and think about it. Our parents weren't worried.
No,
I'm sure. Like if we got home a little late, like they might have been, but they were never.
No,
I know where my kid is at every second, but he's only 5. So I mean,
yeah, dude, it was weird, and I think that gave us a sense of independence and security that a lot of kids don't have today. Because again, everything is micromanaged, and I don't know that it's any more dangerous today than it might be even safer today. But everyone, you hear a story. Oh, someone got kidnapped in Seattle. Okay, the news makes it sound like kids are getting kidnapped in every street corner, and that's not true. I don't think it's any more than it was in the 1980s or 70s or 60s or 50s. But anyways, okay. So what bicycle did you ride? Like, because growing up as children, bicycle was important. I had a piece of shit initially, but go ahead.
Yeah, I had a piece of shit initially, but I remember on my birthday, my father came home with like a frame for a red line.
Oh, nice.
And I don't even know if it was a real red line, but it was like, then Chris Zambogan gave me tires, and then my brother, we kind of built this red line, and I thought it was the coolest bike in the world. Like,
yeah, dude, I remember the red line. That was your red lines. GTs was the big one. What else was big? Schwinns. Yeah, I remember
Mongoose. That was the other one.
Mongoose. Yeah, another one. But yeah, no, I never had those, but I was always enamored and in awe when my friends would get a GT. I'm like, oh shit, you got a GT?
Yeah, the GT was like gangster.
And that's Ferrari. It's like, damn, okay, dude, you made it. Now, what cartoons did you like in the 1980s?
Oh man, I used to watch everything. Justice League was like my, every Saturday I'd wake up and I would like, my parents would take forever to get me up during the week, but on Saturday I was up and I would just clear through right till I forgot the 12 o'clock was like the singing show, the Dance USA or something came on after the cartoons or something. But yeah, I mean, Justice League was my jam.
Yeah, for me, I liked during the weekday, like after school, watching G.I. Joe, Thundercats. He-Man was big for me. I loved He-Man. And the toys, I was like, bro, oh my God, I got it. G.I. Joe. I live for G.I. Joe. I was like G.I. Joe all day. This is, when we're really young. But on the weekends, I watched television in the morning. I guess whatever. I don't know what it was, like Tom and Jerry or Yeah. Oh, Pee Wee Herman. That
Oh
was
yeah, that's right. Pee Wee's Playhouse.
that was big. Yeah. So okay. So now, when you were a young child in the early '80s, like what was some of your favorite toys that you?
One of my favorite toys that I remember that I ended up buying like twice was Stretch Armstrong.
Oh yeah, Stretch.
Remember the Stretch Armstrong? That
Yeah.
was yeah, it was just a
That,
doll that you just pulled and let it go.
yeah.
Pulled and let it
Yeah.
go.
Love this. Yeah. For me, it was any kind of GI Joe doll, He-Man dolls, any kind of Matchbox cars. I don't know about you, but we love playing on
They're
cars.
action figures, Anthony. They're not dolls.
That's right. That's right. Actually, that's right. Dolls. I don't want to get don't get the wrong impression, but
Yeah,
yeah,
let's
no,
keep. It's the '80s. We were men.
that's right, baby. Yeah, actually, but I used to love also. You know what's funny? I don't know if you did this, but like when you're younger, back then at least, you play cops and robbers or whatever. Like I used to have. Like, I don't even think they would sell this stuff today, but like life size handguns. They were plastic toys, but they looked like real handguns. And
Yeah,
I remember walking around with like a plastic Rambo knife that looked real, and they would just sell this shit to kids. Like I was just like, yeah, this is great. And I just thought it was awesome. Like, oh, I got
yeah.
my own knife. It's a pretend knife, whatever. But yeah, I look back, I'm like, bro, those are some pretty violent toys, I guess, in many ways. But
Yeah, the stars, the ninja stars, and
oh shit, well, those were real. Yeah, the ninjas are right. And I thought like you can kill someone with this. Meanwhile, you can't. But
yeah, you can throw it, it'll just bounce off a wall.
right. The ninja stars. Okay, so now what about cereals? I don't know. For me, when I think of 1980s, I think of cereals. So, like, what was your favorite cereal, or did you eat cereal? I don't know.
We used to Lucky Charms and Cocoa
Oh,
Puffs was Cocoa Puffs, but my parents always got like the Kellogg's, the Special K and stuff, because they were like they didn't want, for some reason they didn't want too much sugar, because like it was like they went back and forth, but we used to put sugar on top of the Special K
oh,
anyway.
yeah, I loved Lucky Charms. I lived on that, boy. That was my favorite cereal. Lucky Charms. I used to love the Cocoa Puffs. I used to love what was the other one that I used to eat a lot of? Shit.
Flintstones,
No, Cookie Crisp.
Cookie Crisp, yeah.
That was
I remember my making my sister cry picking out all the marshmallows out of the Lucky Charms box.
oh man.
I remember the morning she went in, she would cry. She'd get so pissed.
You making yeah, I gotta go get a box of Lucky Charms now, but I love Lucky Charms. Okay, so what about now? Who was one of your favorite famous persons, like famous people crushes? Like for me, it was like Kelly LeBrock, like from Weird Science. When I saw her,
yeah. She was smoking.
oh
Was
yeah.
it, oh
Or I
God,
love the girl from Karate Kid, the blonde hair chick. I was like, oh, I love her. Like everybody.
Brooke Shields. You remember Brooke Shields?
Brooke Shields was early '80s. Yeah, you know what? Brooke was a very beautiful woman, but I don't know. I kind of like Kelly LeBrock for me, and that chick from Karate Kid. I thought we just dropped it. But
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember who it was, but I had a poster of like a Lamborghini with a girl spread out on my wall.
Oh, that's funny you mentioned that. So posters too. Yeah. So back in the day, right? I had a bunch of different posters, but yes, I had the bikini clad posters of girls on sports cars. I had a couple of rock and roll posters. Rat, the rock.
I remember AC/DC, like the felt. You remember you touch it? It was
that's
like
what I had. I had a Rat poster, but it was felt. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Oh, what about boom boxes back in the right?
Oh,
there was
my
no
God.
iPods, no cell phone, no. Everyone just walked around with these friggin' blasting boom boxes. These
it was the bigger the better. The bigger the better back then.
There was no headphones, there was no iPods, iPads. So yeah, I remember that too. Like, who got the biggest, radio boombox and double deck and this and that. Okay, so what about so Brooke Shields was your famous favorite crush?
Yeah, I think so. Probably. Yeah, I mean that's the one I can remember. Like.
Okay. What about who was your favorite famous person like that you looked up to? For me, it was Sylvester Stallone. I thought like, oh, Rocky's the best. Like.
Yeah, same thing. Because I got the autograph from him. My daughter. I actually saw him one time. I was at the Grove and we were walking. He's with his kids, and we just made eye contact, and we just gave each other a tiny nod. Like, what I'm saying? Like, I didn't want to go up to him, and I think he acknowledged the fact that, like, hey, you're not bothering me. He was like one of those, like,
thank you.
Yeah. And I walked past, and I was like, that was pretty cool. What I'm saying? Like, he appreciated me not bothering him because, he was being bothered a lot.
Yeah. But still, right. So Stallone was big. I'm trying to think who else for me in the 80s.
I know. Let me think.
Like famous person that I looked up to or whatever. Well, Michael Jordan, came in the 1986, 87. So that's the 80s. Everyone I remember people getting the first pair of Jordans like in 7th grade. Like,
that was the early 80s. Isn't that crazy? My Giovanni, 2024 knows who Michael Jordan is.
Yeah,
if you think about it, holy shit, that was, I thought that was the early 90s, but no, you're right.
No, he came into the NBA in the mid 80s, 86, something like that. But well, Jordan, I mean, one of the arguably best in the world that ever played. So yeah, I'm not surprised that your son would know who he is, and he has a sneaker line. Okay, so what about the fashion of the 80s? Like for me, I love the Z Cavaricci.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, the Z Cavs.
The Drakkar Noir cologne, the cardigan sweater, the turtleneck, the penny loafers. Like I thought I was the shit.
That's it, dude. The wigwam socks.
Right. The wigwam socks. The
gold chain, the gold you remember, like I had the
gold chain.
Yeah, the gold chain, but it had the whatchamacallit, like the charm, what do they call that?
The horn.
The horn, the horn, and then the Italian boot. And,
right. Yeah, I mean, the whole getup, I'm just like, I don't even know. I guess people will laugh at the fashions today in 30 years, but I look back, I cringe. I'm like, I can't believe I wore that shit.
I remember the can of Vavoom spray, the hairspray was like a huge can like that. Bro. Talk about killing the ozone. That must have been
my hair. I sprayed my hair like a rock. It was just
but that's because that's what we had the time to do that. Now kids aren't sitting there, you know what I'm saying? They're on their phone.
No, you know what's funny? I pass a lot of high schools throughout the day in my travels and stuff, and I see these kids coming out of high schools all throughout New Jersey. I don't know how it is in Cali, but everybody looks like a street bum. Everyone's wearing like literally pajamas and slippers and torn, tattered shirt. I'm like, dude, I don't know. When we were kids going to school, high school, it was kind of like a fashion show. People really kind of almost wore your best clothing, to go to school. Today, kids just seem like they just roll out of bed, just nappy and whatever.
Yeah, because they're on their phone to the last second. And I mean, I dress like crap in school anyway, but yeah, but still, I mean, nowadays that's what they do. They're just on their phone to the last second, and then they,
right.
I mean, I would do the exact same. Everything they're doing now, if I was born, I would do exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, right? It's relative, right? If we were kids now, right? You would do, exactly.
But that's the one thing. It's funny you talk about like in entertainment out here. Like, so when you're on sets, like no phones. You can't have your phone on you, because the sound. This, that, so you end up talking to people between shots.
Good.
Like when I go do clubs, stand up, like you're in the back, it's kind of like frowned on to not kind of pay attention to the guy who's going before you or on other comedians or you know what I'm saying. So you end up talking like it's a lot more social than people would think when it comes to like entertainment things.
Right. Interesting.
Because again, your phone messes up the mic.
Right.
Phone's got to be off. Like they're very sensitive equipment there and. So that's
I never knew that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I also remember like starting high school in the 80s, and I don't know about you, but like I guess it's kind of like this for even kids today or anybody. I thought when we were in 8th grade, again, our high school started in 8th grade for the viewers, not 9th grade, but I remember being 12, 13 in high school and just like being enamored and looking up to the seniors. I thought like, oh, you're a senior. Like, oh, you're so cool. And I thought like every chick in the senior class was just smoking hot. I just was like in love. To me, they were women. I'm like, look at these women, And I remember my first year of high school that the seniors, a couple of senior quote unquote women, mind you, I'm 12 or 13, and like 3 of these girls that they were 18, I was like 12 or 13. And I didn't know who they were, but they pinned me up against the lockers and they go, "What are you looking at, dweeb? Are you looking at our chest? Huh?" I'm like, "What?" I was like, no. And they were taller than me, looking down at me. And I was just like I was in love with them. But at the same time, now I'm in hell because they're they're kind of bullying me, really. And they just got me pinned up against the locker. And I'm like, but
that's so funny. I remember even like a few years after graduating, I was like 23 or 22, and somebody who was a freshman who was like a year behind us was hooking up with a girl from like the grade above us. And I was like, oh my God. Even then I was like, that's so crazy. Like,
right.
I was like, now I think about it, like technically, so what's Melissa, like 6 years? So Melissa would have been in like 6th grade when I was a senior. If you look at it like that. I mean,
right. but back then, right.
speaking, it's kind of fucking, it's weird.
Right. But you're right. To your point, right? If a junior was dating a senior, which was funny because that was me actually. I was a junior in high school when I started to date this girl who's a senior, and that was like you never like whoa, you're dating an older woman. Meanwhile, she was like 8 months older than me, and we were both in high school.
Yeah.
But I felt like I'm dating an older woman. Meanwhile, it's nothing. But when you're in high school, a year is like a millennia. But in
like
reality.
Giovanni would be like, he's like, I'm 5.5, and he pushes on the half, and I'm like, technically speaking, that's like, like 20% of his life. Like, so I guess a half is a lot, or not 20%, but probably like 7.5%.
Yeah. No, but but back then, right? Yeah,
I'm not like I'm 50.5.
Right. Yeah. No, it's So I just think of that, right? The high school is just thinking that those seniors, they were my heroes, and I guess that's how it is nowadays too for kids who look up to the upperclassmen. So, what were some of the favorite? In closing, what were some of the favorite stores that you would go to? Whether I guess like for anything, like for me, I loved going to a store named Bradley's, no longer around anymore. It's kind of like the Target back then. I used to love going to C.H. Martin's in Fairview, New Jersey. C.H. Martin's, I used to love that. I used to love going to the Garden State Plaza Mall, which is still around. Like the people don't realize, like the malls back then were essentially Facebook. It's like if you wanted to see who was out and what was going on,
the B12 bus, you remember?
Right, you had to get out and go to the mall, and that's where things were popping off and happening, and you see and cruising.
Yeah, Hanky's across the street from St. Nicholas Church, the 7th Street store. Remember the 7th Street store on the way to school? 5 and 10.
The 5 and 10. That was on Broad
Avenue. Valley Fair. You said it before. That was like the like when you went to Valley Fair with your mother. You buying school clothes, like
Valley Fair was a treat, man. I remember like, whoa, this is serious. We're going to Valley Fair, and I can still smell Valley Fair. It had that smell, that odor to it, and so, same thing with C.H. Martin's. Still that odor, that smell.
Yeah. I remember going to Hackensack. Was like they had some like where the Sears was, but that was like special. That was like
Sears.
First day of school shopping was in Hackensack.
Yeah, Sears was big. If you're going to Sears, if someone's getting married, it's like, Sears. All right, you're going to Sears. Yeah. The mall was big too, though. I remember Paramus Park Mall, Garden State Plaza. That was that was before Amazon. That was before the internet. That's so you had to physically go out and shop and have cash, no credit, no debit, whatever. It was just
$250 was the bus. I think I remember it was like $125 there, $250 to get there, but it passed all 3 malls, so you were able to jump off on any one.
Right, and again, we would do that at 12, 13 years old. Today, I don't know, 12, 13-year-olds, they're locked in their.
I don't even know if they'll let a 12 or 13-year-old on a bus. Probably, right? I guess.
I don't know, but I know we used to take it down to North Bergen in West New York on Bergen Line also. We would hop 12, 13 years old. Me and my
Bergen
friends.
Line, that's right.
I used to love Bergen Line. That for me, that was exotic. It's like, oh wow, everyone's speaking Spanish, and for me, it was like a vacation almost. Like I was like, oh, this is great. It's different. It's awesome. Whatever. It's awesome. And
like little Cuba.
because we grew up pretty isolated. I mean, for the most part, right? When we grew up, it was Irish, Italian. But heading into West New York and North Bergen was really a treat for me because it was like different, people that different cultures, different way. It's not what it is today, where now in this area, Bergen County, it's so much of a melting pot. But back then, it wasn't really a melting pot per se, like it is today. But anyways, so that's the 80s in a wrap up. Anything else, Rico, you want to add? Because the 80s were awesome.
The 80s were awesome. The 80s were awesome, man. They were cool. Again, like I said, I'm sure, I think now is cool too, because I mean, these kids, I guess they're smarter. I don't know.
Anyways, they are smarter. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they smarter, or are they just not a type,
Well, that's true too. And I would say the kids today are actually in some ways much tougher too, because, I always tell somebody, when we were kids, right, if we had a bad day at school, we can go home and forget about it for about 8 hours until the next day. Today, if a kid's having a bad day at school, this is following them. The bullying never stops. The shit talking never stops. At least we had a break. We got out of school at 3:30, came home, we got 10, 15-hour break, and we got away from it. this follows them and never stops. And so in many ways, I think the kids have it harder these days than we did in some respects. But
well, and also in the 80s, the parents were pretty much, in a low level way, was like, suck it up. You know what I'm saying?
oh, right, no one's saying that right now. We're gonna talk
somebody
to
made fun of me. They're like, whatever, get ready for dinner. Like,
right. No, you're right. Yeah, I mean, and there's something to be said about that. I mean, it's a balancing act, right? You don't want to totally like shit on your kid, but at the same time, sometimes, yeah, hey, look, suck it up. Just suck it up. But we
they
live
didn't say that, but it was pretty much that, like,
right. Yeah. It was a different world. And even our teachers too. It was like, I remember going to Catholic school before I came to Powell Park. And I remember getting hit. Gosh, never mind Catholic school. I remember getting hit by the public school teachers. So I'm not going to name names, but I was just like, no, I straight up got assaulted. Like, but back then it was just different. Like there were certain teachers you didn't fuck with, and
they could just lie and be like, I didn't do it, and that was it.
Fact, yeah, they could lie. Also, it could be like, yeah, I did it, and everyone would be like, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah. Today, yeah, it'd be, and even like, I'm not saying people should fist fight. That obviously that's not good. But I remember growing up in the 80s, and it seemed like every friggin' day at Lindbergh or at the high school, there was a fight every friggin' day after school. And like, no big deal. Everyone, yeah, brush it off. Today, I mean, honestly, the police would be there. You have the counselors, grief counselor. Just be like, what? I don't know, dude. But I'm not saying fight, but.
Back then something happened in I mean, literally like 2 towns away, we wouldn't hear about it. Now, like you said, you hear something about Seattle, it's blown up, and then all of a sudden the parents start talking, everybody gets paranoid and blah blah blah. Like, right. I mean, if it wasn't a space shuttle blown up in the air, nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah. And I remember being able to walk into I remember now, right before all this super security state that we live in, right? Remember, we could just walk into the high school or elementary school. I remember when we were in high school, I would walk into the elementary school to visit old teachers, just unannounced, no checking in. I just walk right through, walk into the classroom. Hey, how you doing? Oh, good to see you.
I remember walking right up, if you didn't have a check-in bag, walking right to the plane. Walking right to the plane, and like people smoking in the plane going to Italy. I remember that. I was like,
I remember that too. Well, 9/11 changed all that, but yeah. No, I mean, it was a much right. And I remember going to sleep with my doors open in Palisades Park, and it was just a different time. And
exactly, dude. I'm glad that we had it. And we have this to pass it on, to remind kids what it was like. It might go there again. You never know.
Yeah, and you know what?
With solar flare, we're right back to the 80s.
And not to crap up, but you know what? The kids have a lot of good things going on today too. It's not like today is totally a wash, but there's so many awesome things. And like when your son gets older and his experience that he's having now as a child, I'm sure he's going to reminisce too, and a lot of joy and happiness too. It's relative, right? I mean, I know we're doing a little bit of being partial because that was our era. I'm sure if we talk to people that grew up in the 1960s, they would say, "Oh, the 60s was the best," whatever. Yeah. But
let me tell you, Giovanni's toys are the toys that I dreamed of, beyond my dreams when I was a kid. Like I see the stuff that like he gets, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and God only knows, right? When you become a nonno, when you become a grandfather, what your grandkids are going to be having for toys. And
they're selling toys to us nowadays. They're not selling it to them. I mean, think about it. We're the generation of adults who buy toys.
That's true.
We call it collecting. Comic books, and it's like a 50-year-old man who buys toys for myself.
That is true. Yep. So, but again, maybe we're being partial, but definitely, man, the 80s were awesome. And so long live the 80s. And that's all I got to say. Rico, I want to thank you for coming on as always.
Thank you. And I love seeing you. I love doing this. It's great, man.
Come on, man. And sooner than later, I'm sure we're going to cross paths physically. So, look forward
100%. You always, like I said, you always got a bed to sleep when you come out here.
Listen, like I said, I got a few friends in Cali, so it's making it very easy for me. I just got to get up off my ass and make it happen. But anyways, thank you, dude, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm going to sign us off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you.